You went in May, and you went to document what kind of progress that has been made?
Yes, I was invited to go by a friend of mine at CARE Canada, and I got interested because CARE International has been one of the sort of long-term relief organizations that was operating in Afghanistan, and a lot of the relief organizations have scaled back their operations there because they're less and less safe. And there was sort of an optimistic surge around 2003 after the Taliban had been routed, and it looked like things were getting better, but they've been really deteriorating in the 4 or 5 years since then. But CARE has continued to be there, and CARE Canada had been operating, like even when the Taliban was there, I forget when they started, I think 96 or 98, you'd have to confirm with them, had started to operate a widow's feeding program where they were just giving food rations. So it was like so many gallons of olive oil and so many bushels of flour and this kind of thing once a month. And they were doing that because the widows, of which there were many, because so many of the men had been killed, had no way of making money because they weren't permitted to work and they weren't permitted to go to school. So they had, once their men were gone, they had nothing to do except beg in the streets, if they were even safe doing that. So the Taliban did not mind the CARE people going there and just giving them food. So they had been doing that. But the Canadians wanted to do more than that. They wanted to start giving these women some basic literacy training and some means of supporting themselves so that they wouldn't be relying on food rations anymore. So they were just starting to roll that program out, and my friend at CARE asked me if I would like to go and have a look at it, which was a great opportunity because you can't go there unless you have protection.
Right.
Like I know there are tour companies and stuff operating, which I think is crazy, but you really need to go where there's somebody to keep you secure. So that was why I went. But it was also, apart from just seeing the CARE projects, it was also a chance to meet some of the women. And I was not outside of Kabul. I was just in Kabul.
So you're right. CARE actually has been involved and working there since, I believe, late 1996. So have they made or cultivated a relationship, had they cultivated a relationship with the Taliban prior to the original pushback in 2001?
I don't think they had a relationship apart from, before 2001, yeah. I don't know if they had a relationship as much as they had permission.
That's what I mean, like kind of an unspoken understanding of we'll allow you to function in this
way.
way.
Definitely, because the Taliban was controlling the government.
Because I know that there are, even in a city that it has had some progress, it's, I'm reminded of a Malcolm X quote, you can stick a knife 9 inches in somebody's back and pull it out 6 and call that progress. So what did you experience? What did you see? What was your gut feeling when you came away from that?
First of all, the city is completely destroyed. Yeah, I had never seen anything quite like that. I've been to South America where, it's not as safe as it is here, and they're very, very poor people, but I'd never seen a city that was essentially a war zone. Everything is, like, there's nothing marked from the streets. Everything is surrounded by walls with razor wire along the top. And you do not go, we never went out and walked around. We were picked up at our hotel in a car with an Afghani driver who would deliver us to where we were going. And we never went, say, from the street into a compound without being searched and having our car searched and, without an armed guard. And by the time I went, I had completely resigned myself to, whatever happened. So I wasn't ever scared or worried. I just put myself into their hands. But in terms of your progress and the knife 9 inches in and 6 inches out, what I saw was women and men too, who were really, really committed to making a difference. especially in the area of human rights, and for their children. They really wanted to do this for their children. Like one of the women I met there was Horia Mossadegh, who is the head of the Independent Human Rights Commission.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about her. She's pretty fascinating.
She's just amazing. She was one of the many, many people who fled the country around the time that the Taliban were coming in, around the time of the Civil War. And I just want to say, people think of the main, warfare in Afghanistan being the time of the Taliban and then the time when the Americans started bombing Afghanistan to get rid of the Taliban. But actually, the worst of the war was just before that, and that was their civil war. I forget the numbers who were killed, but by far the most people who died were in that period of civil war between the time the Soviets left and the time the Taliban became the strongest of the rival groups.
And that's an area that's been under constant warfare even since the jihad against the Soviet Union, which of course we all know was aided by the United States, and then of course the Civil War, and then the war.
Ongoing thing now.
Yeah, it's hard to even call it a war because it's still been going on for so long.
And it's very complicated because and that's something else that I discovered, and I still don't think I've answered your question, but as you say, it's a big thing and it's hard to get a handle on. Something I realized there just talking to people is that the Taliban, I mean, here we think of the Taliban, but there the Taliban is really just the most organized of many insurgent groups with different interests. And, some of them are the Taliban, but others are warlords in a certain area. It's a very, very ancient and tribal culture, and there have been vicious rivalries for, 600 years or before, and they've been fighting all this time. And the Taliban tend to claim responsibility for any attacks, but a lot of that's public relations. A lot of them had nothing to do with the Taliban. So it's really an amorphous, sort of difficult thing to fight. And I'm not a military expert by any instance, but it makes the whole question very complex.